Canelo said he's way better than Mayweather. What do you think to that?
Who, Terence?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Of course. Of course he is.
How was Floyd when they had that fight though?
Floyd was 36.
Oh, he was 36.
He was 36 when he fought Canelo.
Because Bud, I believe, is 37 for like another week or so.
Wild, because like if you look at Floyd's resume, it's much deeper than Crawford's. And Floyd was faster and he had a better defense and all that stuff.
I'm definitely feeling that way, man. Go. Greatest of all time, man. You gotta give it to him. You gotta give it to him. You gotta give it to his coaches. Not just me, Saul Red, Bernie, Chet, nutritionists, everybody played a part.
Canelo said he's way better than Mayweather. What do you think to that?
Who, Terence?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Of course. Of course.
Can compare and contrast the fight between yourself and Floyd Mayweather Jr. and tonight's bout with Terence Bud Crawford, if you can?
No, I think Crawford is way better than...
Listen, Floyd was the greatest in his era. I'm the greatest in my era. It ain't no need to compare me to Floyd or Floyd to me.
You talk the talk and you sure walk the walk. Your confidence and aura is on another level. Could we see a run as a light heavyweight?
Nah, we ain't going out that much.
Look at your screen right now, because the sport of boxing just suffered a catastrophic 8-magnitude earthquake, and the ricochet is going to shatter every single pay-per-view record in human history. The ink is wet. The signatures are locked. The non-disclosure agreements have finally expired. And the figure sitting at the top of the parchment isn't a typo. It is $600 million. For the past 48 hours, the combat sports world has been operating in a state of absolute hysteria. Rumors swept through Las Vegas, London, and Riyadh like wildfire, but nobody wanted to believe it until the official paperwork hit the Athletic Commission desk. Floyd Mayweather, the undefeated 50-0 defensive mastermind who swore he would never lace up 8-ounce gloves for a real professional bout ever again, has officially signed on the dotted line. And on the other side of that historic contract sits the single most dangerous, calculated, and terrifying switch-hitting predator on the face of the planet, Terence Bud Crawford. This isn't an exhibition. This isn't a 4-round circus showcase against an influencer or a YouTube personality. This is a sanctioned, 12-round, championship-level war for ultimate pound-for-pound immortality. We are talking about two men who have collectively faced 81 professional opponents and defeated every single one of them. Two men who do not know what it feels like to have another man's hand raised in their ring. If you think you know how this fight plays out, stop right there. Because behind closed doors, the clause negotiations for this $600 million monster were so dirty, so secretive, and so cutthroat that it almost collapsed 3 separate times before the pens even hit the paper. Today, we are breaking down every single jaw-dropping detail, the hidden weight clauses, the private sparring secrets, the financial breakdown, and the tactical chess match that will define boxing history forever. Hit that subscribe button, buckle up, and do not move a muscle, because this is the untold truth behind the biggest fight deal ever made. To understand how a $600 million contract between Floyd Mayweather and Terence Crawford actually became a reality, you have to throw everything you know about traditional boxing promotions right out the window. For decades, boxing has been strangled by promoter rivalries, network wars, and endless political bickering. We saw Mayweather versus Pacquiao take 6 exhausting years of agonizing negotiations just to get both men inside the same squared circle. But this time? The rulebook was torn up, burned, and thrown into the desert sand. The genesis of this deal didn't begin in a promotional office in Las Vegas or a fancy boardroom in Los Angeles. It started behind closed doors in Riyadh, where sovereign wealth funds and international power brokers decided that combat sports needed a permanent crown jewel, a superfight so monumental that it would eclipse every sporting event on Earth. For months, scouts and negotiators were quietly operating in the shadows, floating numbers that sounded completely absurd even by Floyd Mayweather's standards. We aren't just talking about a standard $50 million base purse. We are talking about a total guaranteed pool of $600 million, backed by international consortiums, global streaming rights, and mega sponsors spanning 4 continents. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Why would Floyd Mayweather, at this stage of his life, step out of high-paying, low-risk exhibition bouts to put his flawless 50-0 record on the line against a cold-blooded finisher like Terence Crawford? The answer is twofold, and it comes down to equal parts ego and economics. For years, Floyd has maintained that he is the best ever. He built an empire on taking zero damage, outthinking every aggressive puncher, and generating billions of dollars in pay-per-view revenue. But as Terence Crawford systematically dismantled Errol Spence Jr., becoming the first male fighter in history to achieve undisputed status in 2 different weight classes in the 4-belt era, the boxing community began asking uncomfortable questions. Analysts, Hall of Famers, and fans started whispering, would Prime Floyd have beaten Bud Crawford? Could Floyd's shoulder roll stop a southpaw who switches stances effortlessly and possesses one-punch knockout power in both hands? For a man whose entire identity is built on supreme dominance, those whispers were like nails on a chalkboard. Floyd's competitive fire never truly went out, it was simply waiting for a prize big enough to justify the brutal training camp required to fight an elite active champion. When the $600 million figure was officially placed on the table, complete with a guaranteed $350 million purse split heavily favoring Mayweather, the money aligned perfectly with the pride. Floyd realized that beating Terence Crawford wouldn't just add another win to his ledger.
A great 5th round, and Terence Crawford knew he had to make a stand in this 6th round. That shot got Canelo's attention as Crawford's back was against the ropes. It's a good shot from Crawford, and that shot and that exchange allowed him.
What did you think about what he had to say about you when he said you're way better than Floyd Money Mayweather? I know you heard that he said that. What thoughts came to your mind when you heard that Canelo Alvarez said that about you?
Hey, you know, that's a big compliment. You know, he's been in the ring with both of us, so he would know, you know, from.
The thing about Crawford that people have to understand, it's wild, because like if you look at Floyd's resume, it's much deeper than Crawford's. And Floyd was faster and he had a better defense and all that stuff. But Floyd picked and chose when he fought guys, especially once he left lightweight. He wiped out the junior lights, bring them. Lightweight, he jumps up to Jose Luis Castillo first thing. A lot of people think he lost the first fight, then I didn't, but then he won
the art of knowing when to fight somebody and when not to fight somebody. I mean, that he's the best in that game. He's the best in, you know, making money and making all the, you know, the huge fights happen. But why? Because he was timing every single one of them. He never fought nobody really in their prime. He always
after junior lightweight. Junior lightweight, he did.
He changed the game in the worst way possible. You're right. Everybody's trying to protect their own. I had to break that, right?
It would cement his status as the undisputed king of boxing for the next 100 years. On the other side of the equation sits Terence Bud Crawford. Unlike Mayweather, who embraced the flamboyant, villainous money persona to drive pay-per-view sales, Crawford built his entire career on blue-collar grit, absolute ruthlessness, and an old-school fighter's mindset. Crawford spent years being ducked, sidelined, and criminally underpaid relative to his supreme talent. He watched inferior fighters pocket tens of millions while he had to travel into enemy territory just to get a championship belt. When Crawford destroyed Errol Spence Jr. in one of the most masterclass performances in boxing history, he proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was the preeminent fighter of his generation. But deep down, Bud knew that without a transcendent name on his resume, a name that transcends sports and enters global pop culture, his legacy would always carry an asterisk from casual fans. Floyd Mayweather is that name. Mayweather is the ultimate final boss of modern boxing. The final sign-off didn't happen overnight. Behind the scenes, the contract negotiations were an absolute minefield. Crawford's legal team stood firm on several critical details. They weren't going to let Floyd dictate terms that severely compromised Bud's physical advantages. There were heated disputes over ring dimensions. Floyd notoriously prefers a massive 20-foot ring that gives him ample space to reset his feet and control distance, while Crawford's team pushed for a tighter, 20-foot standard canvas to force inside exchanges. Then came the glove debate. Mayweather's camp pushed heavily for Grant gloves, known for their thick wrist support and protective padding that shields his brittle hands while softening the impact on his opponent. Crawford's camp fought tooth and nail for Cleto Reyes 8-ounce gloves, the legendary puncher's gloves packed with horsehair that maximize kinetic energy and cause immediate facial damage upon impact. After weeks of tense, late-night phone calls between legal representatives in Las Vegas and Omaha, compromise was finally reached. The weight was set at a strict catch weight of 149 pounds, halfway between welterweight and super welterweight, ensuring neither man could enter with an unfair size advantage. The rehydration limits were scrubbed, allowing both fighters to rehydrate naturally after Friday's weigh-in. When the final page was flipped and the signature seals were applied, the ink didn't just bind two fighters, it created the most lucrative single-day sporting event in human history. Now that the business is done and the $600 million figure is locked into escrow, the conversation shifts from the suit and tie boardroom straight into the cold, unforgiving reality of the ring. Because when that bell rings, money can't slip a jab, and net worth can't absorb a body hook. What happens when the greatest defensive genius in history stands across from the most lethal tactical adjustments machine boxing has ever created? Let's start with Floyd Mayweather's fortress, the modified Philly shell defense. For over 2 decades, fighters came into the ring with elaborate blueprints to break Floyd down. Aggressive pressure fighters tried to overwhelm him, sharp snipers tried to outpoint him, power punchers tried to blast through his guard. And every single one of them hit a brick wall. Why? Because Floyd's Philly shell isn't just a defensive posture, it's a radar system. By tucking his chin deep behind his left shoulder, positioning his left arm low to protect his ribs and liver, and keeping his right hand high to guard against incoming left hooks, Floyd presents a target area that is practically microscopic. When you throw a jab at Floyd, he doesn't just block it, he deflects it off his shoulder, rolls his torso 3 inches to the right, and instantly counters with a razor-sharp straight right hand right down the pipe. His footwork is anchored in micro-pivots, he moves just enough to make you miss by 1/4 of an inch, leaving you completely off balance and vulnerable to his pull counter. The pull counter is Floyd's deadly signature move. He intentionally feints his head forward, inviting you to throw a lead jab. The moment your arm extends and your shoulder drops, Floyd pulls his head back by a matter of centimeters, lets your glove brush past his nose, and snaps back with a full extension right hand directly to the point of your chin. It is fast, it is demoralizing, and it systematically strips away an opponent's willingness to throw punches. By round 4 or 5, most of Floyd's opponents stop throwing their jab altogether because they know every jab carries attacks. And once you stop throwing your jab, you are entirely at Floyd's mercy. Enter Terence "Bud" Crawford. If Floyd Mayweather is a fortress, Terence Crawford is a bunker-busting missile designed specifically to destroy structural defense.
Then Crawford is better, bigger. He's actually he moved in weight class, and I would say Crawford is a better fight all around fighter.
It was outstanding.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
Outstanding.
I already knew it was gonna happen, but I thought he was gonna stop him in the 8th or 10th round. Yeah, that's what I was going for.
What's up?
That training.
Speaking of poor promotion, Dana White didn't have his best week. His t-shirt shrank smaller every minute, especially when he was questioned about his attempt to amend the Muhammad Ali Act.
Listen, if you want to be an asshole, let's do it in private and we can do an interview.
So you're saying this reporter is an asshole because he's asking you a legitimate question? Fuck that. Because the Muhammad Ali Act protects fighters, and TKO needs it to change so they can fuck fighters over. Sorry, Uncle Fester. You can't muzzle the boxing media like you do in the UFC.
That's all right.
And after this debacle, he decided to skip the undercard and shows up in the beginning of the main event where he's just watching the UFC on his phone the entire time.
What makes Crawford an absolute nightmare for a traditional Philly shell practitioner is his unique, seamless ability to switch stances mid-combination without losing a single ounce of balance or power. Most fighters who try to switch stances look awkward. Their footwork stumbles, their power drops, and their defense opens up. But Bud Crawford is completely ambidextrous. He can start a sequence as a right-hand orthodox fighter, step through with his back foot during a slip, and end the sequence as a left-handed southpaw with devastating leverage. Why is Crawford's southpaw stance the ultimate kryptonite for Mayweather's Philly shell? Because the Philly shell is inherently designed to defend against orthodox fighters. Against a right-hand opponent, Floyd's shoulder protects his chin from the jab and cross. But when Floyd faces an elite southpaw who controls the outside foot position, that lead shoulder no longer acts as a shield, it actually blocks Floyd's line of sight. From the southpaw stance, Crawford's straight left hand travels directly over Floyd's low left guard, targeting the soft tissue right behind Floyd's ear or straight to the solar plexus. Furthermore, Crawford doesn't just throw standard punches, he throws lead hooks with his right hand that wrap around the back of the shoulder roll. Watch how Crawford dismantles defensive fighters. He doesn't rush in blindly like Marcos Maidana or Saul Canelo Alvarez did early in their careers, but is a patient sadist in the ring. In the opening 3 rounds of any fight, Crawford barely throws power punches. He spends the first 9 minutes downloading data. He measures your rhythm, observes how your eyes react to feints, notes how high your elbow rises when you parry, and tracks your foot patterns when you step backward. Once Crawford downloads that data, he switches to southpaw and begins targeting the body. He digs brutal, digging hooks to the ribs and liver. He understands that you cannot slip a body shot with a shoulder roll. If you try to roll away from a southpaw liver shot, you actually rotate your liver into the path of the punch. Historically, the only fighters who gave Floyd Mayweather genuine fits in the early rounds were southpaws who possessed fast hands and crafty footwork. Think Zab Judah in 2006 or DeMarcus "Chop Chop" Corley. Judah shocked Floyd in the early rounds by landing crisp straight left hands down the middle before Floyd made his legendary mid-fight adjustments to take control. But Terence Crawford is vastly more powerful, physically stronger, and infinitely more durable than Zab Judah ever was. Crawford doesn't fade in the late rounds, he gets meaner, sharper, and more destructive as the fight goes on. This creates a fascinating tactical dilemma. If Floyd tries to stay on the outside and fight at a distance, Crawford will use his long 74-inch reach to pump southpaw jabs, occupy Floyd's lead hand, and step outside Floyd's lead foot to land high-velocity straight lefts. If Floyd tries to pull counter, Crawford's switch ability means he can change the angle of his head mid-punch, making Floyd miss the counter and leaving Floyd open to a devastating short left hook. However, writing off Floyd Mayweather's ability to solve this puzzle is the biggest mistake anyone can make. Floyd's ring IQ is peerless. He knows Crawford wants him to lean back into the pull counter. He knows Crawford is looking for the southpaw straight left. So what is Floyd's counter strategy? How does a 50-0 master plan to neutralize a man who hasn't lost a fight since he was a teenager? In Mayweather's camp in Las Vegas, Floyd has brought in an army of young, fast, explosive southpaw sparring partners. Insiders report that Mayweather has been working relentlessly on a specialized weapon specifically engineered for Crawford's switch-hitting style, the lead right hand to the body followed immediately by a sharp check hook. Floyd knows that when a southpaw steps forward to jab, their midsection is briefly exposed. By sinking low and thrusting a hard right hand into Crawford's stomach early in the fight, Floyd aims to take away Bud's legs, sap his stamina, and slow down his explosive stance transitions. Furthermore, Floyd's legendary endurance is being tested like never before. People forget that even in his late 40s, Mayweather's cardiovascular engine is freakish. He famously runs 6 miles in heavy Timberland boots at 2 in the morning after grueling 12-round sparring sessions. Reports from inside Floyd's private gym indicate that his hand speed is remarkably intact, and his reflexes, while naturally half a step slower than they were against Diego Corrales, are still sharper than 99% of active fighters on the planet. Meanwhile, high up in the altitude of Colorado Springs, Terence Crawford's camp is treating this fight like a cold, calculated execution. Crawford isn't just training to win a decision.
It makes me horny.
Yeah, baby.
To tell you I told you so.
I tell you!
I predicted the Canelo Crawford fight like a goddamn fortune teller.
You're the Oracle?
Canelo's feet were cemented on the canvas as he was hitting air. The fuck was that?
But as you guys can see, look, on that shit get close so you get people to break down on it. Come follow Nick. Nick, get the people to break down.
One of 99 in the world, land delay. This has delivery miles on it.
Well, I look at it in a situation like this. I mean, they compared me to a Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, I'm talking about as far as skills. You know, as far as my skills, and I feel I'm on the level of a Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, and I feel that he's not on the level of a Roberto Duran, so he's not gonna be able to handle it at all. You can mark my word.
He is training to do something no man has ever done in 50 fights, put Floyd Mayweather flat on his back for a 10 count. Bud's head trainer, Brian McIntyre, has spent months dissecting thousands of hours of Floyd's career tape, focusing specifically on the micro moments where Floyd was hurt or forced into uncomfortable exchanges. They studied the Shane Mosley fight in 2010, where Mosley caught Floyd with a thunderous right hand in round 2 that buckled Mayweather's knees and forced him to tie up. They studied the Marcos Maidana fights, where raw physical strength and unrelenting collarbone-to-collarbone pressure pinned Floyd against the ropes and forced him into a dirty brawl. Crawford's team realized a critical tactical truth: you cannot beat Floyd Mayweather by playing a clean, mid-range boxing match. If you stand at a distance and try to out-jab Floyd, he will timing lock you by round 5 and pick you apart with surgical precision. To beat Floyd, you have to make the fight ugly, uncomfortable, and physically taxing. You have to trap his lead arm, press your forehead into his chest, throw short shoulder strikes on the inside, and hit him on the break before the referee can step in. This brings us to the psychological mind games and weight mechanics that could ultimately decide the outcome of this $600 million showdown. The fight being set at a 149-pound catchweight presents a fascinating physical dynamic. For Crawford, who spent years making the 147-pound welterweight limit with ease before moving up to 154 to capture a title against Israel Madrimov, coming back down to 149 pounds requires discipline, but it is comfortably within his physical wheelhouse. Crawford walks around at roughly 162 pounds out of camp. He is lean, muscular, and notoriously efficient at cutting water weight without losing his strength or chin. Floyd Mayweather, on the other hand, spent the prime of his career comfortably under 147 pounds. During his famous fights against Manny Pacquiao and Miguel Cotto, Floyd often weighed in below the contract limit, refusing to put on extra bulk that might slow down his hand speed. But Floyd hasn't cut down to a strict 149 pounds for a fully sanctioned professional bout in years. At his age, losing those last few pounds of visceral fat without stripping away muscle mass and dehydrating his brain fluid is a dangerous razor's edge. If Floyd cuts too hard to hit 149, his chin becomes significantly more vulnerable to impact. In boxing, dehydration reduces the fluid surrounding the brain, making a fighter far more susceptible to being knocked out by punches that they previously would have walked right through. Crawford and his team know this. They are betting that if they can land flush power shots in the middle rounds, Floyd's older, slightly dehydrated nervous system won't absorb the impact the way it did 15 years ago. The mental warfare leading up to this fight has been absolute box office gold. At the kickoff press conference, Mayweather tried to employ his classic mental tactics, flexing his monetary dominance, talking over Crawford, and reminding the world of his 50-0 record. But Terence Crawford is a completely different psychological specimen than guys like Victor Ortiz or Ricky Hatton. Crawford doesn't get flustered, he gets cold. When Floyd shouted in his face, Crawford simply stared through him with a terrifying, unblinking glare, leaned into the microphone, and softly whispered, 50 men tried. 50 men failed. But you ain't ever fought a killer from Omaha, Floyd. I'm taking your soul. The bell rings. Round 1 begins. Immediately, you feel the suffocating tension in the air. Neither man throws a punch for the first 45 seconds. They are measuring inches, testing reaction times, feinting with their shoulders. Floyd sits in his traditional stance, probing with a light lead jab to measure Crawford's distance. Crawford stays in orthodox mode initially, pouring back with his own jab, refusing to bite on Floyd's feints. Floyd lands a clean jab to the body late in the round, claiming the first frame on ring generalship. In round 2 and round 3, Crawford makes his first major tactical adjustment. He shifts into his lethal southpaw stance. The dynamic changes instantly. Floyd's shoulder roll is no longer an impenetrable shield. Crawford begins stepping his lead foot outside Floyd's lead foot, snapping crisp straight left hands through the middle. Floyd responds with his legendary agility, ducking under a dangerous head hook and landing a slick pull counter right hand that snaps Crawford's head back. The crowd goes wild, Floyd's timing is still there. By round 4, 5, and 6, the fight transforms into a grueling, high-stakes chess match played at lightning speed. Crawford begins applying intelligent, calculated pressure. He isn't rushing in wildly, he is cutting off the ring, walking Floyd down, and forcing Floyd to spend energy constantly pivoting away from the ropes.
Versus Mike Tyson, it's been signed for under Mayweather Promotions and Mike Tyson Promotions for 2020-26. Worldwide broadcast. Special exhibition. Who the hell would have thought we would be getting
Who do you think wins in a fight, you or Prime Floyd?
Me.
No questions?
Why would you think that I would say Floyd? You know, that's one of my favorite fighters. But yeah.
Crawford starts digging brutal right hooks to Floyd's body, targeting the ribs underneath Floyd's low guard. You can see the physical toll beginning to accumulate. Floyd is still slipping punches with unbelievable grace, but he is forced to throw more punches than he usually likes just to keep Crawford off him. Then comes round 8, the pivotal round that will be replayed for decades. Crawford traps Floyd in the corner. Floyd attempts to roll off the turnbuckle using his shoulder, but Crawford anticipates the movement. Instead of throwing a right hand over the shoulder, Crawford switches mid-combination, steps to his left, and fires a devastating southpaw short left hook right on the button. Floyd Mayweather's knees buckle. For the first time in over 15 years, Floyd is legitimately rocked in a professional ring. The crowd rises to its feet, screaming in absolute shock. Crawford senses blood in the water and swarms forward, unleashing a furious barrage of hooks and uppercuts. But this is where Floyd's warrior spirit and ultimate ring survival instincts shine. Floyd grabs Crawford, ties up his arms, buries his head into Bud's chest, and uses every veteran trick in the book to survive the remaining 30 seconds of the round. Floyd staggers back to his corner at the end of round 8. He is bruised, bleeding slightly from a cut near his cheekbone, and breathing heavily. His trainer yells at him to move his feet, to stay off the ropes, to keep the fight in the center of the ring. In rounds 9, 10, and 11, Mayweather displays why he is a Hall of Famer. Showing unbelievable heart and championship grit, Floyd adapts. He stops staying on the ropes entirely. He uses lateral footwork, pumping a sharp lead jab and catching Crawford with beautiful straight right hands every time Bud tries to step inside. It becomes a razor-thin, heart-stopping battle, Crawford landing the heavier, more damaging blows that push Floyd back, and Mayweather landing the cleaner, sharp, defensive counters that catch the judges' eyes. Round 12. The final 3 minutes of the greatest fight of the modern era. Both men meet in the center of the ring and touch gloves out of profound mutual respect. Then, they throw caution to the wind. For 3 straight minutes, Floyd Mayweather and Terence Crawford engage in an absolute toe-to-toe fight. Crawford lands a massive uppercut, Floyd counters with a picture-perfect 3-punch combination. The final bell sounds, and both men collapse into each other's arms, exhausted, battered, but legendary. The scorecards are collected. The ring announcer steps to the center of the canvas with the microphone. The entire world holds its breath. Judge 1 scores the bout 115 to 113 for Floyd Mayweather. Judge 2 scores the bout 115 to 113 for Terence Crawford. It comes down to the third and final card. 114 to 114, a majority draw. Or a razor-thin split decision that leaves the boxing world divided forever. Regardless of which man's hand is raised on that historic night, one thing is absolute fact: a $600 million mega fight between Floyd Mayweather and Terence Crawford isn't just an event, it is the single greatest celebration of boxing mastery the world will ever witness. It pits the ultimate defensive legend of the past generation against the ultimate offensive predator of the current generation in a battle for absolute immortality. Now I want to hear from you. If this $600 million showdown goes down right now, who takes it? Does Floyd Mayweather find a way to stay 51-0 and defend his TBE crown, or does Terence "Bud" Crawford do the unthinkable and hand Floyd his very first professional loss? Drop your round-by-round predictions in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the latest breaking boxing news. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.